Well, rising fuel prices have given rise to opportunists. Some service stations are now being forced to ask motorists to pay up before filling up. It's after several countrywide incidents of motorists speeding off without paying for their fuel. Could this be because petrol is too expensive, or is it just a case of lawlessness? Well, CEO of the Fuel Retailers Association, Reggie Sibia, is here in studio with me to talk more about this. Reggie, thank you for coming in.
It's my pleasure.
Let's talk about this. I must admit, it's the first I've heard of it, that people are doing this. When did this trend actually start?
Well, this trend has actually been with us for quite some time, and it's actually quite prominent. It happens quite frequently. It just never gets reported. You know, the only time it actually got reported was last year, and that's when we had deaths in the forecourt. The Cape Eggers actually did advertise a story where the motorist actually beat the petrol attendant to death because there was argument, and the petrol attendant wanted the payment up front, and the customer was not willing to do that. But he finally paid, and then he left the forecourt, and a few minutes later he came back with a wooden stick, and he beat the guy to death. So, and also there's a lot of obviously abusive incidences that accompany this kind of behaviors.
So we are not just looking at just a criminal element. We're looking at a common motorist who obviously becomes a criminal at that point if you're doing this. That are committing these. It's not just people wanting to steal fuel. It's probably people who can't afford it, and then this leads to other can't afford fuel at this point, leading to these kinds of incidents.
Look, I think it's both. I mean, there are people that obviously just purposely come to do this. It's just something that they do on a day-to-day basis. And then obviously one cannot discount the fact that the affordability levels with the increasing fuel prices do contribute to that. So, yeah, I experience those kind of drive-offs. But, you know, the other kind of drive-offs that we are experiencing are due to the technology from the banks. And people are not really aware of that. When you filled up your car and then your SMS tells you that your account has been debited. And then meanwhile, there's been a communication failure between the acquiring bank, you know, and the issuing bank. And you as a customer are still having the SMS saying that your account has been debited. Meanwhile, the transaction has not been closed. And then the attendant comes and show you that there's been an error on your account. And of course, you don't believe it. Yeah. Because even if when you phone the bank at that particular point in time, the bank itself, because of the failure of their technology, can't actually pick up that a transaction is not closed. So what happens is that the motorists end up actually just driving off. So
what is a motorist supposed to? I mean, in a day and age where we're seeing all kinds of fraud, we're seeing theft online, we're seeing people swiping our cards, getting our numbers, and money just disappearing from our accounts, do you actually blame motorists for being reluctant to have their card swiped a second time?
We don't blame the motorists, but what we're saying is that is the effect of drive-offs in our businesses is quite killing. You know, there's hundreds of thousands of rands that our industry is losing due to drive-offs coming from the elements of criminal acts and behaviors, but also being caused by the banks. And the one that is being caused by the banks, we're actually saying that is actually a technological issue that banks can easily fix. And it's been, you know, since 2012, we've been fighting for banks to stop this. And of course, you know, it does inconvenience the motorist because the motorist now has got to fight with the petrol attendants.
Who in turn has to pay that money.
You came to actually fill your petrol. You know, petrol is a grudge purchase for starters.
At the moment,
and
yes,
you don't really expect to be told that your account, you know, has been debited and the petrol attendant says it's not.
And we're wary of, you know, where we use our cards and how we use our cards. So obviously in this case, it's the poor petrol attendant who's having to cover the cost of this. What is the solution to this, Reggie?
Well, you know, for the employer, it's very difficult, you know, because, you know, especially when it comes to elements of criminal behavior, you know, you do have instances, you know, where there is employees, you know, colluding with the outside public to do these kind of things. And of course, it is very, very difficult to prove it. And, you know, the other thing that actually is quite frustrating in the process is our own justice system. Because just to follow up on that act of criminality will take you a long time. You know, sometimes people just give up along the way. So I think there's got to be a balance. There's got to be an element of trust, you know, between the employee and the employers. But one can't totally blame the employers.
But do you think the way forward is to get people to pay first, like they probably do overseas? Get them to pay and
That's
then
definitely the way, and overseas is actually already happening, but that's also linked to the fact that those markets are fully deregulated and there's no self-service. So customers, they know, how much their car is going to fill up. The problem at the moment, one challenging problem will be when a customer says, fill up my car. So most people don't know really how much that is going to be. But I think we can start to change the behavior to try and cap on this situation by actually asking people to pay upfront. In fact, there is no law that says you cannot pay for your fuel upfront.
Okay, you also need to lower the fuel price, Reggie. That might stop the trend. Thank you very much. CEO
you.
of the Fuel Retailers Association, Reggie Sibia, talking to us in studio.
You're watching Morning News Today, and still coming up, we'll be speaking to young voters ahead of the general elections.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com